cost of implementing such a program will be too high and benefits will not be substantial enough to justify those costs. First of all, according to the Taiwanese government's budgets, the total expenditure in 2022 is projected to be around new Taiwanese dollars of 3.1 trillion. Implementing a UBI program in Taiwan will cost at least new Taiwanese dollars of 2.2 trillion, which is equivalent to more than 70% of the government's total spending. This is simply not a very sustainable cost for the government to maintain this kind of policy, and it would have to either cut off other essential services to raise taxes to pay for it. Such a massive burden on the government's budget will not only hurt the government but also have adverse effects on the economy as whole. Our second argument is that UBI may not address the root causes of poverty in Taiwan. While poverty is undoubtedly a problem that needs to be addressed, UBI may not be the most effective way to do it. Taiwan's poverty rate has been declining over the years, and the government has already implemented several policies to alleviate poverty. One example is the welfare program, which provides financial incentives for people to work. By contrast, UBI could lead to a disincentive for people to work or even lead to inflation. So when government spends too much money to the citizens, every citizen gets rich, so money becomes less worthy, so that's why it causes inflation. In a country like Taiwan, where labor shortages are already a significant issue, UBI could exacerbate this problem or this situation. Our third argument is that UBI may not be effective in reducing income equality. While the idea of giving everyone the same amount of money regardless of their income level may sound appealing, it could actually widen the income gap. The wealthy will receive the same amount of money as the poor, and in turn, they may use that money to invest to generate even more income for those rich people. The poor, on the other hand, may only use those money to fulfill their basic needs, so like water, rentings, and foods. So they can use this money from UBI to generate more income. This could create a vicious cycle of income inequality rather than reducing it. In conclusion, while the idea of UBI may seem appealing, its implementation in Taiwan will not be a wise decision. The cost will be too high and the benefits will not be substantial enough to justify those costs. Taiwan already has policies in place to alleviate poverty, and UBI may not address the root causes of poverty in the country. Additionally, UBI may not be effective in reducing income inequality and could even widen the gap. For these reasons, we urge you to vote against the implementation of UBI in Taiwan. Thank you.
First, unconditional basic income to reduce poverty and inequality along with promoting social income and stability. An unconditional basic income would provide a reliable and predictable source for all citizens, regardless of their employment status or income level. This would help to reduce poverty and inequality, as well as improve the overall standard of living for many people. Moreover, an unconditional basic income could help to promote social and economic stability by providing a safety net for people who may otherwise be vulnerable to financial instability, such as those who lose their jobs or face unexpected expenses. For example, recently a pilot program called Citizens Basic Income was conducted in Brazil. The program provided a monthly basic income of approximately $30 to every adult resident of the city, regardless of their income or employment status. The program was funded through a local tax on oil royalties, and it was designed to reduce poverty inequality in the city. The program was found to have several positive outcomes, including a reduction in poverty and food insecurity and an increase in social participation. In addition, there have been several conditional cash transfer programs, such as Brazil's Bolsa Familia program, that have shown promising result in terms of reducing poverty and improving social outcomes. Second, it can encourage entrepreneurship and innovation, and unconditional basic income would provide a financial cushion for people to take risks and pursue entrepreneurial activities, which will lead to increased innovation and economic growth. One study that provides some evidence for this idea was conducted in Uganda. The study found that providing a small unconditional cash transfer into individuals increased their earnings, and the increase in earnings were particularly strong for those who started their own businesses. The researchers argued that the cash transfer provided a financial cushion that allowed individuals to take risks and invest in their businesses. Thirdly, it can simplify the welfare system and reduce stigma. An unconditional basic income would be a simple and efficient way to provide support to all citizens, without the need for complex and bureaucratic means testing processes that are also associated with traditional welfare systems. Furthermore, an unconditional basic income would be provided to all citizens, regardless of their circumstance, which would help to reduce the stigma often associated with receiving government support. Studies of basic income experiments have found that the provision of conditional cash transfers can reduce stigma associated with receiving social assistance. For example, a study of the Income Pilot Program in Canada found that recipients of the basic income reported feeling less stigmatized and more in control of their life than recipients of traditionally tested social assistance programs. Thus, we affirm the resolution that Taiwan should enact unconditional basic income. Thank you.
Do you agree that UBI helps us to solve the problem of poverty by giving the money to poor people and allow them to spend it on daily needs, like basic needs, like water and shelter? Okay, so if you agree with that, then how can you say that UBI can help people to start their business because people already spend those money on their basic needs?
We say that is the ordinary people, not the poverty. The ordinary people can have their own businesses because they have the extra money. And the poverty people have, any kind of ordinary people's life, like you have enough to work.
But on average, a business in Taiwan has over $5 million to start a business. That's like the average rate in Taiwan. So how can 10,000 Taiwanese dollar help those people to start their business if the support is so tiny?
They can save money. The ordinary people can save money.
So you're meaning like they have to like save money for years, like for?
Yeah, because they have extra money because the government gave the UBI to the.
Yeah, so they have to save UBI money for like 5 years or 6 years in order to start a business.
But if there isn't have any UBI money, then they won't have a.
Yeah, so it isn't very beneficial. You have the question to ask.
What do you think it will cost the inflation?
Yeah, as I mentioned, if government spend a lot of money to people so UBI spend a 2.2 trillion Taiwanese dollars. So if anyone gets richer, their money become less worthy. So that's why the inflation will happen. I have another question. So you mentioned example in Brazil, right? So how can an example in Brazil prove your point if you are debating on the UBI in Taiwan? You can use the evidence in Brazil to support your point.
Taiwan has an agreement with the UBI, yes. So Taiwan is a country and with a lot of people. You can refer the experiment data.
Yeah, but Taiwan still have a main thing different from Brazil, like in Central Asia. For example, Taiwan's poverty rate is way lower than Brazil, and also the GDP per capita of Taiwan is way like bigger than like Brazil. In other words, Taiwan people are more richer than Brazil people. So how can we say in this situation, how can we use Brazil's example to prove the point?
That is time. Alright. Whoa, do you all need prep time?
Yeah.
Minutes, 145 minutes.
I'll start my rebuttal now. One of the primary concerns with UBI is the potential for inflation. UBI advocates argue that providing everyone with a fixed amount of money each month will stimulate economic growth and boost customer spending. However, this ignores the basic laws of supply and demand. If everyone suddenly has more money to spend, demand for goods and services will increase, causing prices to rise as well. This inflationary pressure could lead to an increase in purchasing power of UBI recipients, ultimately negating the supposed benefits of the program. Furthermore, UBI was incentivized entrepreneurship and innovation. Entrepreneurs are driven by the promise of profit and success, and they take on risks. In the hopes of achieving those goals, UBI will provide a safety net for individuals who chose not to take on those risks, ultimately discouraging them from pursuing their entrepreneurial dreams. In other words, UBI could stifle the very economic growth and innovation that its advocates claim it will promote. Moreover, UBI could create a culture of dependency on the environment. Instead of their own skills and power to succeed, individuals become more complacent and content with their multi-UBI payments. This could lead to a decrease in productivity and a culture of entitlement, ultimately harming our economy in the long run due to laziness when it gets UBI. Finally, UBI will be incredibly expensive to implement. The cost of providing a monthly payment to every citizen will be astronomical, and the taxes required to fund such a program will be incredibly high. This will create a significant burden on business and taxpayers, potentially leading to economic stagnation and decrease in economic growth. In conclusion, while the concept of universal basic income may seem appealing on the surface, it's not a viable solution for our economy. There's potential for inflation, the disincentivization of entrepreneurship, the creation of a culture of dependency, and the enormous cost of implementation all outweigh any potential benefits. We need to focus on fostering an economy that encourages hard work, innovation, and entrepreneurship, rather than relying on the government handout to solve our economic problems. So, in conclusion, UBI doesn't really solve Taiwan's problems. Thank you.
Good
afternoon. We would like to refute each of the three arguments made by the con side. First, the con side has been mentioning that UBI will give money to people that they don't need it. That's assumed for a moment that it do give money to the rich people. They may not need the money, but this is the necessary sacrifice to simplify the complicated and the shame of the welfare system right now. Taiwan is currently experiencing massive unemployment as a result of the new coronavirus pandemic. According to the Ministry of Labor, unemployment has raised from 3.7% before the pandemic to 4.07%. Moreover, Taiwan has the sixth largest number of the robots in the world. We are wanting to face the situation where robots will replace humans. This sudden unemployment will have a very bad impact on the safety and the economic stability of the society. As a result, there is definitely a need of UBI, not to mention that the money given to the rich people is not useless. It can be used as an act of comfort because although the rich people get UBI, but they also pay more taxes because of the UBI. The second argument of the con side is that UBI will cost too much cost. We do not deny this, but we believe that the government is capable of solving the problem. If UBI were doing right now, many social welfare budget and the administrative cost of employment social welfare budget will be significantly reduced. In the European Union, for example, some scholars have calculated that if all exist subside and benefits were combined and made into the UBI, there will be enough money to pay €800 per person per month across Europe. Not counting the administrative and personal cost of the labor cost that would be eliminated with the UBI. Significantly, there are two ways to solve too much cost of UBI: making money and saving money. For the making money part, the government has three targets to taxation. The first is to tax the technological companies, especially data collection practice, because like Google, Facebook, Amazon, or other large companies often rely on data to make money. And those data are come from contribute of each of us in our daily life because we slide phones and we have data. The second one is to tax the owner of robots and automation's product factors. The future robot society will create a lot of unemployment equal. The robots themselves are not taxable. Therefore, even if we cannot tax the machine and AI directly, we can increase the taxes on their owners and take care of the general public through UBI. The third one is to raise the tax of unearned income, such as inheritance and rental incomes. Following the example of Tom's practice in the script of Tom's practice, capitalism of the 21st centuries, we split the target to 0.1% of the society with vast interest, redistribute wealth, and reduce the incentive of the unearned benefits. The third argument is that con side has been claiming that UBI will lead to inflation, but according to Stephen Pressman, a formal professor of economy and finance at the Mama University, says that whether a basic income cause inflation will depend on the state of the economy as a whole, how the basic income generates is financed. Pressman also has been saying that if the basic repeal is financed by reducing other government spending, the basic repeal protections would have a little or no effects on reflection. So we don't think that inflation will happen. And actually, the reflection that we are talking about is because too much money getting inside the market, so that the price will be higher. But at the same time, when the price being higher, the boss will get more money, and the boss get more money, there's going to be a higher salary. So inflation will be a problem if there's really going to be an inflection. But the con side needed to prove that there's going to really be an inflection from happening. Thank you.
Did you mention that you mentioned robots, right?
Yes.
But can you say that how the robot directly connects or relate to the UBI topic?
Because robots will make a lot of humans don't have their jobs, and when we don't have our jobs, we will not have money to live our lives. So in order to facing that problem, our government needs to have a solution to face that problem, because Taiwan is the sixth largest country that owns robots, and it's going to be a very big problem that we needed to face.
But do you agree that welfare also encourages people to build companies and get into apply to jobs?
You say the current welfare right now, or the current welfare can give people money, but actually the current welfare will be slower. It's just like the third contention that we haven't mentioned, that if we simplify the whole welfare system, we're using UBI to simplify the whole welfare system, people are going to get the money faster because the people that are in employment right now won't get the money so fast. And they're going to suffer from poor from 2 or 3 months because they needed those money from the government to themselves. It needs a long time.
Okay, and as you mentioned, if inflation happens, it lets the market get, it lets the boss get higher salary to get more money to let him pay more higher salary to workers, right? But that doesn't really relate to inflation, right? Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with that.
Why?
I don't really understand what you're saying.
That if inflation occurs, how exactly does the boss get the money and to pay it to?
Yeah, because you have been saying that inflation is because you have been saying, as I know, you have been saying inflation because the price is going to be higher. But as the price is going to be higher, the boss is going to get more money, right? And the boss is going to get more money, and they can get more salary to their employees.
But that doesn't really connect to pulling people out of poverty.
But pulling people out of poverty is not related to this problem. Because pulling people out of poverty is what UBI can do, just like you have been mentioned. And you have been saying that we only have the experiments done inside Brazil, but actually we have a lot of different experiments done inside Finland, Alaska, Kenya. A lot of different experiments have been proving that poverty can be solved by UBI. So why don't you think that the experiments is
because there
really?
are also other experiments like in Canada or Iraq that it proves that UBI doesn't really help in the economy and the country. So that doesn't really prove a point because that if different countries have different examples, it doesn't really relate to Taiwan just due to the different conditions of the countries.
But just like you have been saying that the experiment is done inside Canada, and you say that it will prove that UBI is not official, and it will not efficient. But actually your experiment is done inside Canada. And my experience is done inside Uganda or a lot of different countries. It's all not done inside Taiwan.
Good. Prep. Alright, starting now. Okay. 20 seconds used. So
So to sum up the statements so far, these are the some of the main statements we've been saying. So the first is that inflation. So the first is that it could cause inflation to happen if the government spend a lot of money on the citizens. As I mentioned, because if people get every people gets richer, so the money becomes less worthy. And to use the data to support my statements, according to the World Bank's data, the GDP growth of a country is usually proportional to the inflation of the country. So in Taiwan's situation, the GDP growing rate is about 1%, which the inflation growing rate is about 0.4% each year. So which means in Taiwan's situation, the GDP growth is also proportional to the growth of inflation. So the purpose of UBI is to help with the economy and the poverty people in Taiwan. The GDP of Taiwan will also grow. So using my logic, if the GDP grows, the inflation will also grow. So this proves my statement that inflation will be a big problem if we have this policy of UBI. And the next one is we already have a lot of blue welfare systems. So as I mentioned in my opening statements, we have a welfare system that provides a 19,000 new Taiwanese dollar for those poverty people. But those welfare systems does not use so much money like UBI. So if we use UBI policy, we have to cancel all those other blue welfare systems. And also our poverty rate is already very low, meaning those welfare systems are already doing a good job. So there's no need to spend lots of money and to cancel those welfare systems we already have. And our last main statement is that UBI could decrease the productivity of people in Taiwan. So if everyone gets UBI, like no matter how poor you are or how rich you are, if you already have enough money to use, then you won't have the motivation to work. So this could be harmful to the economy, which is different from your statement because of the lack of productivity and motivation of the
Very good. And then, Pro, do you need any prep time?
We have 30 seconds.
Okay, starting. Seconds to use.
First, I want to consolidate our second argument that in 2017, Harvard Common Sense addressed Mark Cooper knew that he was only able to start fast food because of the financial safety net these were to defend his family provided. He had need to work instead of having time to cook. He said he wouldn't be standing here today if without his family provided. Yes, and the counting just mentioned that the data just implemented in Brazil, not in Taiwan. But yeah, it's sure that data here shows that it can reduce poverty from England in 18th century to the whole world today. For example, in 2019, UNICEF report on Iran's basic income program, which gave Iranians monthly cash transfers equal to about $1.5 per day, found that it had significantly reduced poverty in that nation. Similarly, experiments have also occurred in Finland, England, Brazil, Alaska, Kenya, and Uganda. They all show that UBI has a good result in solving poverty. Yeah, but Taiwan hasn't implemented the UBI yet. So our topic is whether Taiwan will implement UBI rather than whether the impact of Taiwan's implementation of UBI system is good or not. Moreover, Taiwan is also a country with a lot of population. You can refer to the experimental data of their countries. Taiwan haven't tried. How can we know that UBI is an unsensible fantasy? And I want to say about the inflation. Why does it cause inflation? The root cause of inflation is that the government is printing a large amount of money because there's too many money in circulation in the country. But UBI monies come from the overpaid tax paid by the people. If the money used to finance UBI is not increased by newly issued money, but the money in circulation goes from other place to another, it will not affect inflation because the government does not print money. And if you are talking about the problem of inflation caused by increased circulation amount in the market, I don't think it's true because ordinary people will not greatly increase the consumption because of the small amount of UBI. They may save the money given by UBI, and saving money will not lead to inflation.
That's time.
Can I ask a question?
Like to me? Oh, it's like, oh, okay.
As you said in your first speech, that UBI encourages entrepreneurship and that
Sorry, I can't really hear you. I'm sorry.
as you said in your first speech, like UBI encourages people to to apply to jobs and like to encourage entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
But then she said that people should save money on them and people should save money. So how does it really?
It's like two parts. Like people can choose to save money inside the bank. People, and so the question you're talking about is actually more related to if we only have like a little bit of money 1 month, how can it make how can they start a business?
Yes, because like UBI also only gets like $10,000 a month to.
Yes, but actually they can ask for the bank for they wanted to rent money, and if they rent money, they can use UBI to pay for it, so it's not a problem. And actually, we have the evidence of the CEO of the Facebook saying that it will really help, because the reason that he can create Facebook is because his family can support him money, but actually for those people who cannot, they need to use UBI to solve this problem.
Yeah, but those people may not they may not have the ability to return those money to the bank. If people like start their own businesses, then there's no like guarantee that they can earn money with their business. So have you ever think of the question why they are like in poverty or they are poor compared to other persons, because like they don't have those abilities. So if even if they can rent money from the bank, there's no guarantee that they can earn enough of money to return to the bank, but they would also have a lot in debt.
We're saying that they can rent money from a bank and they can use UBI to pay for it. They can pay for the bank. Because you're saying because UBI will only have a little bit of money 1 month so that it can't make them create their own businesses, but we were saying that they can create their own businesses through renting money from the bank, and they can give the money back to the bank every single month, and it will not be a problem because they will use the UBI to give it back to the bank. Yes, we want to ask that you have been saying a lot of bad effects of inflection, but how can you prove that the inflection will really happen? Because inside of the policy, people have been saying that inflection won't happen inside our policy.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the study of World Bank shows that the GDP growth is usually proportional to the inflation rate. So in Taiwan situation, our GDP growing rate is about 1%, which our inflation growing 40% is about 0.4%. So this is in the same situation with our product. So if our economy with GDP grows, our inflation also grows. And as you had mentioned, UBI is trying to help with the economy and the poverty problem, which means to increase the GDP furthermore. So which means the inflation will also increase furthermore. And also your evidence. Okay.
Con, you got 125 preps starting now. That's time.
Okay. My speech starts now. The proponents of UBI argue that it will stimulate economic growth and encourage entrepreneurship. However, the reality is that the potential for inflation of UBI far outweighs any supposed benefits. If we implement UBI, we risk destabilizing our economy by creating an artificial increase in the demands for goods and services, leading to inflationary pressures that could result in a decrease in purchasing power for UBI recipients. This could ultimately result in a net loss for the economy. In contrast, encouraging job creation and entrepreneurship will provide a more sustainable and organic solution for economic growth. By providing incentives for businesses to invest in their operations and hire more workers, we can create a virtuous cycle of increased productivity and economic growth. This will lead to increased wages and better job opportunities, ultimately benefiting a wide range of individuals and businesses. Furthermore, UBI could create a culture of dependency on government handouts. This would be detrimental to the economy and society at large, as it could discourage individual initiative and work ethic. In contrast, by encouraging job creation and entrepreneurship, we can foster a culture of hard work and self-sufficiency, which are essential ingredients for a healthy and prosperous economy. And they say that well, people can save money in banks, but they didn't really consider about the interest and the basic needs of the people, so that they won't be able to pay the money back to the bank. And in conclusion, while the idea of UBI may seem appealing to on the surface, the reality is that it will create more problems than it solves. Inflationary pressures that it weighs very much, and dependency on government handouts, and the cost of implementation all outweigh any supposed benefits. So we need to focus on encouraging job creation and entrepreneurship, which will provide a more sustainable and organic solution for economic growth. So I urge you to vote for CON in this debate. Thank you.
Pro, you got 2:30 prep starting now. All right, that is time.
Good afternoon. So first we have three arguments, and they agree with our first argument that UBI can reduce poverty. So we even think that UBI will reduce poverty is a problem because we have been giving every single evidence we can give in the previous round. And second, they have been attacking our argument of UBI can make people wanting to start their business because there's still going to be a possibility that people's gonna have nothing and gonna be very poor because they start their businesses. UBI can help everything, but we don't say that UBI can make every single person success at their businesses, because starting a business always will have a risk, but UBI can make the risk lower, so people are more willing to start the businesses, because with a lower risk, they don't need to have so high risk to start their businesses. And the third argument that we have been making is that the UBI can simplify the whole welfare system right now, and they also haven't attacked that point. They don't deny that, so we can assume that they don't deny that UBI can simplify the whole welfare system right now, because we have been proving evidence before. And actually, they have been saying that when GDP getting up, the inflation will get up, and it's gonna make inflation when our economy, society will getting better. But actually, does that mean that every single country can that their GDP being higher? Because GDP being higher is most of the country wanted to pursue making their GDP being higher, because that means that all the people are going to have a better life. It means that their country are stronger. It means that their country are richer. But so there's no they only provided evidence saying that GDP higher will make inflation, but actually it does not make sense in the reality. Like because if GDP higher will cause inflation, why those countries wanted to make them GDP higher? So that is a problem. And also we have been saying that in our policy that we provide. Thank you.
Are we all finished, or? Oh, sure. Alrighty. Congratulations to both teams on a really good debate. The decision is a 2-1 for the pro team from Lishan High School.
So added points to the pro team, and then you're providing more stats and evidence to support your debate. So there's literally only 2 points apart, so that was a really good debate, I think.
As for me, I voted for the pro team, but actually the debater score for each team, for both the team, is the same. But the reason why I give just a little bit point for argumentation for the pro team is that for the argument for the solving poverty system is actually that because examples have been brought up by both sides. Like the pro team has mentioned that there are some countries adopting the UBI has been successful, while counting out that there are other countries adopting UBI is just failed. So actually this point is bad. So I didn't take the advantage for the pro side. On the other hand, the counter side claimed that there are some disadvantages while adopting UBI because of the inflation part. But the difference between this round and the previous round is that the pro team has responded to the inflation part with that maybe the people they can return the interest by UBI, so their burden of finance can be reduced. So this is actually the pro team's response, but I think the counting maybe didn't realize that, and maybe you can provide some more proof or some more explanation to respond to your claim. Yeah. So the advantage of this poverty problem is bad, but the disadvantage of the inflation is also bad. Then in the end, I took a little bit point. I was more persuaded by the pro team claiming that there will be a little bit more benefit for the entrepreneurship because they can get UBI. And actually they rent money from the bank, and UBI is not for them to invest. Actually UBI is for them to return money to the bank. So actually this is the difference why this inflation part, inflation argument didn't work in this round. And I think it's just really close, and I just took a little bit point for this argumentation. So this is the reason why I voted for the pro team.
Okay. Both of you are really good. You did a lot of good things from the last debate. I think probably the biggest sort of difference here is I think the pro is going for just like a little bit of a bigger impact. Probably kind of outweighs whatever you're talking about. In particular, I think the pros kind of plea at the end, which is just like, look, if there's going to be some rise in inflation, but like the benefit is just like you grow the massive engine of our economy. Like I think I'd probably pick that, even if it came at the cost of slight inflationary pressure, because you're, I think, doing an okay job of impacting it out, but it's like a little vague right now. You're just saying like inflation has like destabilizing effects on the economy, and then you just like assert that it's like more important than any other economic factor without really explaining why. And so like if you could get more into the weeds here, just like why is inflation so bad for the economy, then I think like maybe you got a win in the shot here. But I think as of now it's just like a little underdeveloped. The other thing that you're trying to do, and I think this is clever, you should keep on doing it, is that if inflation is so bad, it like basically nullifies all the poverty reduction arguments they're going for, because it's like you get more money, but all your money is worthless. I think you should keep on doing that, but I would not rely on that as your main argument. I think you're much better off just suggesting that like, in general, inflation is really, really bad for the economy, and it offsets any of the good stuff that the pro is claiming. But as it is, like I just don't think you're really pushing back too much against what the pro is saying in terms of encouraging entrepreneurship. And in fact, I think you even kind of shoot yourself in the foot, because you say in your speech, like, if you can grow the economy via entrepreneurship and job creation, well then that will offset the harms of inflation. Like you say that like twice in the final focus, and I don't really get why you're saying that, because that just seems like something the pro wants to say anyways. Like the pro wants to say, we encourage entrepreneurship, and then you're telling them, oh, so if you prove that you increase entrepreneurship, that acts as a very large growth impact that is more important than our own inflation impact. And so I think in this case, you kind of like accidentally shot yourself in the foot here. I think if you had not done that, right, so you don't say, if you create more jobs, that is good, and instead suggest that targeted solutions to poverty that don't pump unnecessary amounts of money into the economy are good, I think that's actually better for you, which is weird because like you're saying less, but I think in this case, the less is better. You just want to say too much money in the economy is bad, and then don't give the pro a lifeline and say like, but if you prove that like you grow jobs, like that's good, right? Like don't tell them to do that, right? Like make them figure out how to beat your own argument. Like don't give them the way to beat it yourself. The other thing I had to think about was like the pro did not directly answer the work disincentives argument by the last speech, and it's clear that like this entrepreneurship thing and the work disincentives thing are like they interact, but like not really, because like it could be the case that certain groups of motivated people now become more willing to become risk takers, and then like certain groups of lazy people just like sit on their bums and watch TV all day. And I think you would need to explain a little bit more like why lazy people sitting on their bums watching TV all day is worse than giving some people the safety net that allows them to jump off the cliff and start their own business. I think if you did that, like maybe that pushes against the pro a little bit as well, because then that would push against like how much job growth are you really getting? Is it maybe offset by like a lot of people just like not going to work anymore because they're super lazy? Which is all to say, I think just like a little bit more interaction, just like a little bit more explanation of like how your argument affects the other side's argument would help a lot here for resolving. In fact, I kind of hear that echoed in both of the previous judges' statements. Like they're more or less piecing together how some of the arguments fit together, and I think it'd be better if you just did that for the judge. I have two other small comments since I guess we're like less time constrained at the moment. For the pro, I think, first speaker, this fan, really loud. You gotta speak louder. Second is a lot of pro teams are going for this entrepreneurship argument, and I would classify it as like B+ tier. And the reason why is because I think it's not really an argument in and of itself. In other words, I think it's an example of the broader argument, which is that the UBI creates a safety net, which is good for many reasons. So one of those is it solves job lock. Like one reason why people are really afraid to switch jobs is because in the interim, it takes forever for welfare to kick in, and so they're not willing to switch their jobs and risk being impoverished until they can go find a new job. UBI creates a safety net that lets them quit their job for a little bit of time and then go find a new job. And like that's good because it unlocks a more dynamic economy. People aren't stuck in low productivity jobs. Entrepreneurship is an example of why the safety net is good because it means people can quit their jobs and start their own startup businesses and stuff. But I would be much more interested in you focusing in on the safety net portion and then saying there are like 3 or 4 impacts from it. Entrepreneurship, job lock, just like people being compensated for unvalued labor. So like a common argument for UBI is like women are not paid for taking care of their children. UBI basically says you don't need to work if you want to go take care of your children because we'll pay you enough money to offset that. Like those are all things that the safety net does. So I would refocus your arguments on the safety net portion. Entrepreneurship being an example of why the safety net is good. For the con, I think the same comments that I made in the last debate, just like explain why the current welfare system is working now and why UBI would be worse than it. So for example, I said last time, like, well, if a disabled person is getting 20K NT a month, and all of a sudden you take all of that away and just give them 10,000, like, you're not helping them, you're hurting them, right? So I would focus in on that sort of thing. And I would also, just in general, I think this inflation point is like not very true. And I think you're trying to make it sound more true by throwing a bunch of like big terms around, like there's an intrinsic link between GDP growth and like inflation numbers, and like you throw a bunch of random numbers out. I think like maybe to some that's persuasive, but to me the more you talk about it that way, the less persuasive it sounds, because it seems like you're just kind of like making up numbers to try to justify your view. I think just sticking with the very simple explanation of just like, if you accidentally put too much money in the economy, that causes prices to rise. And instead of throwing all the numbers around, just sticking with that simple logic, I think is actually more persuasive to me than by trying to like talk about all these numbers. And then maybe give an example. Right now in the United States, there's this huge debate about should the US have given all the coronavirus stimulus payments, where you basically just give a ton of cash to poor people, well to everyone, but mostly poor people. Is that the cause of the current inflation crisis in the US? I don't think so, but a lot of people do, and I would use that as an example instead of throwing around the numbers. The example, I think, is going to be a lot more powerful here. Okay, those are all my thoughts. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. As always, if you want my comments/flow, the QR code is there. Good first day. See you all tomorrow.
Some questions. Is policy debate commonly seen in American debate?
Yeah, I would say policies, well, I would not say policy is the most common American debate, but it is most common in America. Yeah, if you're talking about the best country for policy debate, it's undoubtedly the United States. And the U.S. is not going to be nearly as, it's not going to be like, the U.S. is not like as universally dominant in other debate events, for example, like British parliamentary debate, but it is undeniably the best country at policy debate. But I will say there is like some, definitional clarification, because what I've witnessed as Taiwanese policy debate is like very unlike American policy debate. Taiwanese debate is clearly influenced by American policy, but not a mirror of. Yeah.
Because we seldom do policy debate with the public forum system.
If by policy you just mean like, is the topic more policy in nature, then yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything, special about it. It just seems like you just have a topic that like people could have like a basic conversation about for a general audience, and it wouldn't require delving into like very specific details and stuff like that. Like for example, there's a group in Britain called Intelligence Squared, and they host these public debates on a wide range of like social and political issues. And like they would debate something almost exactly like this, but they don't really get that detailed. It's just about sort of general arguments for and against the position, without having to like specify like legislative details, like who is the agent of action, like what regulations are in place, where is the funding stream from, and stuff like that. And even in American policy debate, I think those are often details that we kind of put aside because I don't think they're necessary to answer to get at the sort of general question, which is, should Taiwan enact a universal basic or unconditional basic income? Like, let's say the funding comes from like one source over the other, unless that had like a significant impact in the debate raised by the opposing side, like I don't really think most teams would care too much about where that funding comes from, because it doesn't really seem to be intrinsically related to whether or not the topic is true or false.
Okay. The most common thing debate in the US, maybe Lincoln Douglas or
No, public forums by far the most dominant because it's the easiest one to do. So there are, I would say, 6 major high school debate events in the US. There's parliamentary debate, ethics bowl, congressional debate, Lincoln Douglas, policy, public forum, with public forum being by far the most popular, and policy being by far the least popular. And mostly it just kind of, like the popularity is more or less scaled to just like how easy it is to do. So public forum is the easiest to do, so it's by far the most popular. Policy is by far the most difficult to do, so it's unsurprisingly the least popular.